Hey there, and welcome to another episode of KDM, which stands for
Kit.
Demetri Movies. Hey, that's right. We're a brand new review show. Kit Bowen. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Demetri's Panos, how are you?
I'm moderately neato. Thank you for asking. We are bringing to you a brand new review show that is an accumulation of all our experience of movie watching and movie reviewing, and we're here to bring it to you, and hopefully what you will find is an entertaining, resourceful fashion. And today we have something that I will speak for you if you don't mind, Kit. Something
Absolutely.
that is near and dear to our hearts because we have grown old, or we've gotten older, I should say, not grown old. We have grown older along with this fabled legendary character and actor, but it's Indiana Jones, of course. And right now, we're going to pay homage and respect to Indiana Jones and talk about Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. You know, people have no idea what that is either in today's world.
Speaking of
But we
the
still had those.
older.
So, so Kit, you actually, you put me to be in an envious position. You got to see this movie a few weeks ago, which is, fine. I got to see it yesterday, but what did you think of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? And I'm
Well,
going to put my phone up.
we will definitely be kind of looking back at the different ones after we give our reviews. But
Mhm.
I loved it. I mean, I felt all the feels were there for me, especially with Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. He has created this indelible character. Um
I
and
like that word.
to see him, become who he becomes, they don't shy away from any of the they don't shy away from the age thing. He's certainly older now, and as an older person who's been his whole life has been adventures and exploring and archaeology and whatnot, and now he's sort of relegated to being just the professor part, which was always a cool part of what he was doing anyway, I thought. So yeah, I was on it for the ride. It was another great ride. Phoebe Waller-Bridge plays sort of a connection to Indy. It's his goddaughter, and you kind of get the backstory about that. And the very first part of it, they did a de-aging thing with CGI, which I thought was fantastic. To be honest with
Sure, yeah.
you, I really did not. It was like deleted scenes we had never seen before, kind of thing. I mean, it was really done. It was really well done.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's always Nazis, and it's like I think he's several movies he said something about always Nazis. But now we jump forward to like 1969, and we get to see what he's up to at that point, and then Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character comes in, and they go after the Dial of Destiny, which is another artifact. This time a possible time traveling artifact. But now I'm going to blank on the philosopher or the inventor. What's his name?
Archimedes, an
Archimedes.
actual person. Yeah, so
which
Archimedes, but go
which
ahead.
is a part of history that Indy is very well versed in and loves, and that kind of thing. But yeah, another adventure, another they trip the globe there. They go to Tunisia, which of course we all knew from the very first one. But I
Right.
think, and like I said, it was a fun ride, and I was along with it. But I think the nostalgic touches to this were so endearing, and made me choke up, and added a layer of an Indiana Jones movie that really had never been there before, I didn't think.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
um
Kit, I'm gonna forgive me for interrupting. We should have probably started off with this, but let's just say this review will contain spoilers because I think it's very hard to by the time that this review gets put together and we put it out there, the movie will have been out for its
Couple days.
first few days, and we'll warn people.
Oh,
But
okay.
we have to talk. I mean, you bring up this nostalgia point, and I think it's really important why it resonates with myself because of what happens in this movie. So to not talk about it, for you and I not to talk about it, I think would do
Okay.
both of this conversation a disservice.
Okay, so
by
spoilers.
all means,
Spoilers. All right.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I'm just gonna finish my like overall general review of it and
Mhm.
say I loved it. And I think it's well worth its place in this franchise, be it maybe the last one. We don't know. Maybe they'll find a new person, but it'll be kind of hard to do that, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, I loved it. But yes, go ahead. Now you can fill in some of those until you're and then we can talk about some of the spoilers.
Um, well, I am in 100% agreement with you. I love this movie. And to say I love this movie is kind of an understatement. I had hoped for the best, and they gave me more. The Indiana Jones character, who, as we said at the top of the show, I've grown up with.
Right.
And it was a bit of sadness to hear that Steven Spielberg was not going to take on the project. Because we knew that this would more than likely be the end. I mean, Harrison Ford's up there in age. As you said too, I think they play into his age very well. But James Mangold comes in, and I shouldn't have been surprised because this is the guy that brought us Logan, which also deals with
Time travel.
but it deals with getting older.
Yeah.
And your resourcefulness.
Right.
I felt that this movie, I loved it. I felt that it was just a wonderful old time cinematic adventure.
Yes.
In the years of watching movies, we've watched action movies evolve, and it's great. There's no complaints. But Indiana Jones action, I mean, it's evolved in that set pieces have become bigger and such, but it's all within the realm of that time, the time period that Indy is in, and in that universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it never becomes tech heavy. It never becomes like Mission Impossible, because it was never like that. And using things around him, whether it's in a cave or on a bridge, those are the things we're never going to see Indiana Jones jumping on, we'll see him falling off a bridge, but he'll never go to the heights of, say, a Tom Cruise does.
Right.
Right. So
but
to me,
Harrison,
go ahead.
Harrison has, I mean, obviously he might not have done many stunts in this one, but he was kind of pre-Tom Cruise on the whole stunt.
He was very pre-Tom Cruise, and we can talk about that and talking the first Raiders of the Lost Ark. But for me too, this movie wears its nostalgia, which you brought up, and it's like your favorite worn leather jacket. It not only feels good and comfortable, but each fading of the leather or scratch mark on that leather that you have is your history, that leather jacket's history. And it's the same type of history that Indiana Jones has in his fedora hat and the jacket that he wears. And the history is wonderful. And we see in Indiana Jones in this movie that, for all intents and purposes, he's broken.
Yes.
He's a broken man. Life has moved on, and it's 1969, and it's an age of dawning and discovery, because we've just landed on the moon, and he's living in New York right as, New York is preparing for that historic ticker tape parade with our 3 real hero astronauts. And Indiana Jones, we learn, is in the throes of a separation. He's in retirement. He's about to retire from his job as professor of archaeology, and he has not had adventures in quite some time.
Right.
And it's an Indiana Jones that is vulnerable, that we've never really seen before.
Nope.
As a hero. And I so appreciated it, and Harrison Ford playing it the way that he did. because Harrison Ford understands, right?
Yeah.
And we knew at the last Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, it ended up with he and Marion. I mean, that is a cinematic love,
Right.
I think, as deep as Rocky and Adrian, so to speak. And it was a love, and it was a relationship that we all wanted to see, but it was meant to be. And we knew that the two characters loved each other. And so here, Indiana Jones feels somewhat lost. The future is upon him. He doesn't know how he fits in. He's retiring. He's alone in the world, he feels, until Helena Shaw shows up, his estranged goddaughter, and offers him an opportunity for life,
Right.
offers a lifeline in the finding of this Archimedes dial, in which he helped her father in 1944, mind you, that great prologue you were talking about, find at least half of it. And
Right.
she comes back and says, I know where the other half is. And meanwhile, there are people after her, and Indiana Jones is back on the horse, and literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively, right? Yeah.
And those scenes in New York City with him on a horse riding through the ticker tape parade as all this confetti is going down, and him passing by the astronauts and looking at them. Pure classic Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You get the feels. And then again, somebody last night had written, ooh, the action was so generic. I said, really? Because I always see people riding a horse in a subway tube. I always see them trying to escape and do this. I mean, I thought that those scenes were, not only were they fantastic, but it's pure Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And
I mean, look, you're right. We have come to an age,
right.
First Indiana Jones blew all of us away, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously action sequences have evolved tremendously, twofold, tenfold, thousandfold. So, you've got a Mission Impossible, which is coming out next very soon as well. And you've got the Fast and Furiouses, and you've got all this. So I can understand why someone maybe who wouldn't have sort of like we're saying, you and I are both,
right.
We feel very nostalgic. So yeah, so the action sequences in this aren't over the top, but they're still exciting. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter to me how many jumps and flies and leaps and whatever that they end up doing. It's still right.
Yes, and
right?
I felt Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I really loved her. I loved her progression
got
as
on
a
my nerves
character.
a little bit, but other than that,
Did
yeah.
she?
Yeah.
See, at the beginning, I get, but again, what has always been great, these characters have had decent arcs, and she has a really good arc, and she becomes part of the family, let's say.
Yeah.
And then so he's back off on adventure again, but an Indiana Jones movie is it's always, well, they always say your hero is only as good as your villain, and here we have a really good villain, right? And this Dr. Voller is played by Mads Mikkelsen,
who's he's like the Christoph Waltz. The two of them are like simultaneously evil to me. They just play the bad guys like there's nobody's business.
Yes, I'd like to see him play a good guy. He played a good guy once or twice, but I'd like to see him take a break from a villain. But he does villain so well, and he did it with such. You could tell he really loved being in the movie that he was being a villain in.
Yeah.
The MacGuffin of the movie, this Archimedes dial, which is based off of the Antikythera, which could, potentially for the movie's plotting anyways, could open up fissures in time and space and whatnot. I thought was brilliant. And you talk about nostalgia feels, Indiana Jones recognizes his age. And while he never says the words, I'm too old for this shit, instead he's hanging on a wall,
right,
rock climbing. And she goes, what's the matter? Are you going? He goes, I'm thinking. What are you thinking about? I'm paraphrasing. It's like, I'm thinking how I hurt all over. My knees don't work the same way. My hips don't work the same way.
I've
And
been
I'm
shot
asking
9
myself,
times.
right, I've been shot 9 times, one of them by your father. And I'm asking myself, what am I doing here? And why? And it can, those lines can only be delivered by a Harrison Ford. But it resonates and you feel it
Yeah.
in the way that he moves, and the character knows of his mortality, so to speak. I found that was fantastic. But as far as nostalgia goes, it was the character's heart too, because there was another character in this movie, Sala. Sala's good friend, right? Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark again. And I think what's brilliant about that character is when we're first introduced to that character, we really know nothing about him. We just know that he's a contact and good friend and ally of Indiana Jones. He's helped him out before. That's all we've needed to know. He shows back up again in The Last Crusade. And then he shows up here in the Dial of Destiny, and he's in New York, and it might make you wonder, what the hell's he doing? Like, how did he get there?
Yeah.
And then, of course, in a great script, it's explained. Indiana Jones helped me and my family come to the United States.
Yeah.
I stopped and said, well, of course he did. Of
Well,
course. Huh?
Here's the thing about this Indiana Jones, which is you
Yeah.
and I both agree on this one.
Yeah.
He is more vulnerable, and he's lost people and who's been helping him, throughout all the movies. But what I found very poignant to this one is the people he has lost. He feels it now. It's like, so they just escaped this ship scene, and he had a friend who was helping them out, played by Antonio Banderas, very small cameo part, but spoilers, this person gets killed, and Phoebe's like, we got out of there, blah 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 blah, and then you pan to Indy and he's like, I just lost a friend. And you're like, oh. And that's what this movie was about. It was about him coming to terms with losing, with grief, with this
It was
this new
it was a physical
new adventure for him, and that gave him more life. But still, he's got all this stuff still on him. So I don't know. And the Sala part was just great, because here's a very dear friend that he ended up helping and was able to be friends with him for his life. So I don't know. There's so much to it.
And to me, it was the way that this information is all parsed out, right? So here's the first time I got emotional twice in this movie. By emotional, I literally welled up. And it was when Sala is now helping Indiana Jones. He's driving him to the airport. And Indiana Jones gets out of the car and Sala says, hey, I brought my passport with me.
Can I come?
I'm here if you need me. Can I come with you? I'm here for support. This is the kind of friendship we don't actually see in these kind of movies too much, really, like, And I welled up. I'm going, and then again I said, well, of course he would, because he's not in it for like the adventure. He wants to help his friend because he's recognized that Indiana Jones is in not the same place that he's always known him by. And I found that to be wonderful. It was a very sweet part. And again, we could talk spoiler. We learned at the beginning that Marion has asked for a separation, or he and Marion have separated. Now, this is a trope that's done in movies that I always hate. I always hate when we have one movie where we really want to see these people together. They should be together. They get together. And then if there's a sequel, they're apart and they hate each other again. And it's like, why? It's like, I've spent so much time wishing these people together, and I was watching the movie going, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But then we get midway through the movie, and they're talking about this dial, this Archimedes dial, and what would you do if it actually can bring you back in time? And Indiana Jones goes through this monologue that shows more of his grief and pain of people he lost, and he goes into this monologue and saying, I would go back to the point and have my son and dissuade my son from enlisting.
Yeah.
And she's like, and this was a side of him that we not only knew until
Right.
this point, but his goddaughter never knew
Right.
at all. And he goes on and says, because we lost him to this war. Remember, it's 1969. We lost him to this war. My wife became so inconsolable that there was nothing I can do. And it led to us separating. It devastated his life. And now he has Helena going, oh, damn, you had a lot of things going on. I wasn't even there a part of. She
Right.
recognizes things, but it also throws back to a part in that New York scene where he's trying to escape people and he gets into that crowd and starts going, hell no, I won't go. Like chant, the script beautifully ties it in and you go, oh, okay, I understand now.
Yeah.
And back to friendship when we get to the end.
No.
Who's there? like who is there? Well, his goddaughter.
Yeah.
Sala. But who comes walking through the door at the bag of groceries? None other than Mary and Ravenwood Jones. And
that scene just killed me.
It killed me. And Sala's like, come on, let's go get some ice cream. Well, Mary just got some. No, we're gonna go get something better. And everyone leaves. And you could tell that it was Helena who called her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, and said, look, I spent time with this man. I was wrong. Yeah, he needs help. And she comes back into his life, and they almost reenact the scene, the brilliant, beautiful, clever scene. Like, well, where don't you hurt? I don't hurt here. Here. And she kisses. She does it now. She goes, well, I hurt too. Where do you hurt? And she goes, here.
I don't hurt here.
I don't hurt. And that was my second time. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I know.
And
it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
And it was really James Mangold and company, man. They really, you could tell that they have such great respect. And Mangold himself has said he went opening day to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was a teenager, much like probably you and me. I was 15 when it came out. So I cannot say enough fantastic, wonderful things about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I know the theater I saw it in last night. It was preview night. I went to a 3:00 show. First time in forever where I was at a 3:00 show.
Right.
And it was pretty much sold out. It was IMAX, and the only seats that I noticed that were empty were the ones right up front. So I consider that a sellout.
Yeah.
The crowd was a mix, but I have to say it was like going to an early bird special. There were a lot of like around my age, or maybe a little bit younger. There were some families there. But there was applause. So they liked it. I loved it. I think it's probably, look, I have no illusions that it'll get any Academy Award consideration.
No.
But that won't keep it from making it my favorite movie of the year. And I still love Air 2. So I loved Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It is a wonderful way. He was destined to end this way.
Yeah. And I think that was if it is the very last one, and I'm sure that it is for him anyway, was the most brilliant send off. So I would give it a solid 4.5 stars. How about you?
5.
Yeah,
5
like I
me.
said, I had a little issues sometimes with the Phoebe Waller character, and I had, it was a little muddled in parts, but for the most part was top notch for me. So 4.5. So let's talk about because I remember seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark. I guess I was probably like 16 or 17. I can't remember.
I was 15, so it was 1981.
Right. I can't do math. Anyway, I was in high school. I was blown away. It was like the same feeling I had when I saw Star Wars for the first time. When that big ship's coming over like that, and it just keeps getting bigger bigger and bigger. I'm like, what am I watching? Same thing with that opening sequence with the whole,
with the boulder,
all of it. I'm like, and then the ball coming down and then everything. I'm like, what am I watching? This is so great.
And I laughed, and it was clever, but just a little history. So we had Steven Spielberg, who had Jaws and then Close Encounters, and in that same year, George Lucas had given us Star Wars some years before. He'd already had American Graffiti, but he had Star Wars. As a film lover, we knew that Lucas and Spielberg were good friends. So the first trailer that comes out or any announcement was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are coming together to make a movie together. And this is the movie that they're going to bring you. And you saw some behind the scenes, but you had no idea what this is all about, why. And you had two giants at the time who were, one of which, or both, what Spielberg was still on a meteoric rise. Like he was still going, and this was only going to be a continued part of that because this is before he had E.T. So, I mean, you had these two giants of the industry coming together to make a movie. How could it miss? And then they had Harrison Ford, who had already proven himself as Han Solo. So, you already loved him. You're going. And then you watch this movie, and it's just scene after scene after scene, blended with humor. We see Marion. We had great villains. We had the Nazis. We had
Covenant. That was just freaking crazy.
The Ark of the Covenant. Haven't any of you ever been to Sunday school before? We had the Staff of Ra. We had Sala. We had Bad Dates. Then we had the truck scene. The trucks. If running from a boulder wasn't enough, we had that fabulous truck chase scene. And to your point, well before Tom Cruise. I mean, Tom Cruise was a pup. He was just getting started.
Right.
But Indiana Jones thwarts a truck filled with Nazis, and he gets thrown onto the hood. He gets shot, thrown onto the hood, and then we're watching a man in real time with no special effects, no digital. We're watching a man climb underneath a truck, take his whip, his trusty whip, and then get dragged. And it was absolutely no doubt that was Harrison Ford being dragged.
Yep.
And all the while going, how the hell did they do that? And I couldn't wait. Like, I saw every behind scenes footage and read everything about this and going, yeah, he was dragged by a truck.
Yep. And his ribs.
Yep. And climbs back up and he fights the guy, throws him out, and he gets run. And then it's the sneer. It's that yeah. And then the end.
Yep.
Where is it? It's in a safe place. What safe place? A safe place.
Actually, it was the best place for it, and that's what the Ark wanted. They wanted to be lost again, and there it was, being lost again.
And thus began a new era of cinema, and it brought us back to those golden days. Because what's funny is, like, we talk about Dial of Destiny today. It was like, this great good old time, but the reviews for Raiders of the Lost Ark are pretty much saying what we're saying, because those reviewers back then and the people who made it grew up on the Quartermain B-movie, cliffhanger, fight, chase movies. That's what inspired them to do that. And then those people in 81 writing reviews, that was their recollection, where our recollection is Raiders of the Lost Ark, which inspired me to watch those Quartermain. And then we got Romancing the Stone. And then we got all these great, we got these other movies. But
But here, it's the thing about the Raiders of the Indiana Jones series. Not all of them hit for me.
Okay.
I did not like Temple of Doom so much. I thought it was just the whole kid thing and just all of I don't know. I didn't like it as much. Of course, we always have to have some kind of either snakes or insects or rats or whatever it was. And that was bugs. What? With snakes in the first one, bugs in the second one, rats in the third one. Anyway, but the third one, The Last Crusade, with with Sean
Sean
Connery as his
Connery.
dad was fantastic. It was, for me,
Right.
I equate the first one and that one as the same. Now Dial of Destiny is kind of sneaking up in there.
Mhm.
I did not like Crystal Skulls either. So it's like, it's not that I don't, it was just, I just thought the premise and the things surrounding Crystal Skull was just so kind of dumb and over the top for me. I will always love Harrison Ford as a character, you know. But, and also in the second one too, Kate Capshaw really just bugged the bejesus out of me. And then, you know, you've got, I don't know, there was just something about it I just didn't like. So honestly, it hasn't, they all haven't hit for me. But I
See,
still,
I like them all to different degrees. I don't point to one and say it sucks. Temple of Doom actually has grown on me through the years.
need to
I
watch
think
it.
the mastery of the special effects, the minecart scene, and what they did with stop motion and what they did with certain things, you know, it's just pure artistry. It really is, and the action and the adventure is great. I love Last Crusade. Yes, Crystal Skull has its faults, but to me, the crux of that story is Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood. There is a great scene in which Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, she's like, "Well, how many women have you?" He goes, "You've had a lot of women." He goes, "Yeah, I sure have, doll." He goes, "But they all had the same problem." She's like, "What's that?" "They weren't you, babe." And
Oh,
he goes out of the truck, and then just to see Karen Ireland smile, I was like, yeah, this is why this movie works for
you're
me.
damn partner.
Yeah. So as a
No, it's
series,
so
yeah,
funny. I was watching that last scene in this movie with her, and I kept thinking about that scene, you know, where she's in Tibet and she's running that saloon or whatever it was all by herself.
right,
The drinking scene is one of the all iconic drinking scenes. And
right.
looking at this woman who obviously has embraced the time. She's kind of hippy dippy in her, you know, in her like long skirt and
She
everything.
still has her
Like,
ponytail.
yeah, and I'm like, you've had just as much fun
Yep,
and adventure as your, you know, your husband. I don't know.
yep.
It's just so great to see her and just to think about that, you know?
Yeah, I always knew you'd come walking back into my life. And she socks him
I know.
again. What movie up to that point, right? Like where you see a woman literally sock your hero on the jaw, and you can tell it was a wallop. That's why I love these movies.
I
That's
know.
why I love Dial of Destiny. I cannot say enough about it other than I cannot wait to see it again. I feel like we need to give Indiana Jones more time because of how he affected our movie going and lives, because the movies really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Harrison Ford, look, if this is the
We
way
got to
to
wrap
go,
it up. It's about
I
ready.
know.
So yeah,
Yep.
I agree with you. And we can continue talking about it in another of our podcasts because, you know,
Yes.
great action
Yes.
coming up and we'll kind of
Yes.
talk about it. So I think our next biggie is going to be the Mission Impossible. Yeah.
Yep, it will be. Yep. And thanks, Kit. And thanks to you, the viewer. Thanks, Kit. I love doing this with you. Can I tell you?
I love
It's so
it too.
fun. Yeah.
All right. So
All right.
take care, everyone, and definitely check out Dial of Destiny. It's
I appreciate you. Yeah. Bye.